So hey, my name is Tyler Cloyde. I'm the student pastor here. For some of you guys that don't know me, I've been in student ministry for even before here. So I've been doing full time ministry with students and kids for close to 13 years. And I remember being with students back in Ozark and K-Life when they were just sending and receiving pictures. And I remember sitting down with a guy who had came to me and was telling me that he was texting pictures of himself and stuff like that. And I looked at him and said, "Buddy," I was like, "I know you may not realize this, but if you start receiving stuff, like you could get charged. You could get charged with pet." And he was just like, and I'm thinking like, man, and this is like 10, 15 years ago of what was going on and where we are today. And so as a parent, definitely have just, even more so being a student ministry, diving into this topic of understanding about how do we, protect our children, how do we set boundaries and things along that nature. So anyways, that's me. Justin?
My name is Justin Trice. Been in the IT industry for about 20 years, and what really qualifies me to be here is I have 4 kids, 2 in college, and 1 in high school and 1 in junior high, and I've somehow survived the gauntlet of smartphones and computers and internet and all those things, and I'm just here to share a little bit of the wisdom that I have and what we learned, so welcome.
All right, so the purpose of, again, we're talking about the purpose and pursuit of boundaries, but the purpose of this message is that we want to give people a practical framework for how to build healthy relationships with their children while teaching them how to build healthy habits when it comes to the phone use, social media, gaming, and overall use of technology. So you're going to see this kind of twofold process: building relationships and building healthy habits. Everything that we talk about, and you're going to hear a lot from Justin on the relationship side of thing too. But if we're not building relationships with our kiddos, then we're missing the mark. It is about protecting them. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about that. But it's not about putting restrictions on them so we feel good about a parent that we did our parently deed. If we're not connecting through relationships, then we're missing the boat.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that. I mean, to me, that's the core of this whole thing, that relationship you have with your child, the capturing of their heart. We can set up boundaries and filters and do all the things on our devices, but if you don't have that heart connection with your child, it's just all for naught. And this is just one spoke of a giant wheel of things that are going to be in their life. Who they choose to date, what their careers are, what they're doing in life. This is just one small section of that. And really the formula is the same for all of them. It's just being vulnerable with them, explaining everything to them, and just gearing their hearts to trust you.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is we want to build healthy habits, right? And so I want to read this quote to you. This is from Common Sense Media. They're really great. They're actually, it's funny, they're not really Christian at all, but they have a lot of information, just research that they do as well. But this is what they say. It says, your ultimate goal is to raise kids who use the internet safely and responsibly and think critically about their actions. But a little technical assistance can help. And as your kids get older, you'll need to dial down the restrictions to help them develop their own sense of responsibility. And this is what I talk about, building healthy habits. Like when they leave the home, and they will leave the home, some of you guys in here have kids that they've left the home, like, what have they learned? Like, how are they going? Because they're going to be able to have freedom, in a sense, to do whatever they want. So what healthy habits have you built into their lives, or they've built into their lives, so that when they leave, they still have those in their lives? So that's kind of where we're going from. And we want to give just a quick little analogy here. So, Justin, you've already had some kids that are have their license, they're driving. You've got one who just got their license. Is that right? Isaac just got their license. That's so much fun. And then, of course, you got Hattie here who's going to get hers in a minute. But let me ask you this. Did you just, as a parent, just give your kids keys at 16 years old and said, go get them, Tiger?
Yeah, you just let them go, right?
Yeah, I said that's what you guys know that, right? You just give them their keys and go. Like,
absolutely not. So here's what it's a progression, right? It starts out, they're sitting in your lap in the car and you're driving through the neighborhood. It progresses to, okay, we pull into the neighborhood. Hey, can I drive home? That kind of thing. Pull into the driveway, whatever it is. There's these steps. And even with Isaac, he just got his license, just turned 16. Fort Smith is off limits, right? So there's just these steps and progressions that you stack upon and train upon and equip them with the right tools.
That's right. So in that same analogy, right, if we're not willing to give our kids a set of car keys at 16 and say, go do it, we've got to actually, they go through this process. Why would we give them a phone and say, have at it, right? And so, and I know we wouldn't necessarily do that, but we maybe have thought that, or maybe you have done that, and you realize, what was I thinking, right? Or and you've heard people that do that. And again, it's not to hate on that. It's just to give this analogy of this is why we're doing this, right? This is why we want to pursue and find the purpose of setting boundaries. And I want to use this word boundaries rather than monitoring. We're talking about monitoring, yes, but it's setting boundaries in their lives. And so we're actually going to use this analogy, and hopefully this pops to the right one. Let's see. Go. There it is. We did that one. All right. And so we're going to call this kind of passing through three gates. And so you're going to see kind of this progression. And before we get started, let me just throw this out there. Like, this is not hard, fast rules. This isn't like gospel oriented, like you do this or else. I want to give you guys parameters. I want to give you guys enough practical of understanding, like in this age frame, in this time frame, in this progression, so that you can kind of build a framework. But again, every family dynamic is different. You're actually going to hear from Justin what this looks like practically, because again, he's done this. So even when we talk about age groups on some of these things, it wasn't the exact age groups that Justin did with his kids, all right? So just hear me on that. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page of like, when you start, like when your kid gets their first phone, it may be different for every family, but you actually have a framework for kind of what this progression looks like. So the first thing it starts out with is, of course, no phone, right? Like no baby walks around with their own little personal phone, right? So a kid doesn't have a phone up into a certain age. For just this talk, we're talking birth through elementary, all right? So we haven't gotten into middle school yet. Birth through elementary, no phone. And we understand that, like, they don't need a phone. I'm sure they could have a phone and they could still call, but they don't really need it at this point in time. However, one of the things that you can do in teaching them is you can help teaching them how to self-regulate a little bit. And so that maybe that's with TV, maybe that's with how much they watch YouTube or play video games. I know for our family, we say only video games on the weekends, but I'm even kind of looking at like, I'll have one of my kids will sit there and they'll play Madden for an hour and a half, and I'm going, I don't even think that's good, even though it's just one time a week and a whole hour and a half, and that's all they're doing. I'm like, I don't know, is that really? So we're even processing like, how do we help him to self-regulate? Like, hey, about this amount of time, and let's break from it, and things along that nature. So what would that look like for you guys?
So in our house, it was more no data. So all of our kids had our old iPhone 6s. We had old iPads. There were things laying around that they had access to in this stage. They're, of course, locked down. We've kind of went through the seasons where there's so much available nowadays. When we first started out, there wasn't built-in protection in the iOS platform or iPhone, which is kind of what we are in our house. We're iOS platform house. So we had to create different things. But at this stage, it was locked down heavily, no devices in the room. There's no TV in the bedroom. You don't take the iPad in there, whatever. We're staying in the common areas, and this is what we're doing right now. And it's heavily monitored. Kids YouTube. Again, the devices are locked down where they can't really get on the internet. Just plain simple kid games, things like that, learning education type stuff. That's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah. And so again, this whole no phone is doesn't mean like, oh, we're good. They can just like use this as a way. That I like how you guys actually used phones as like, hey, they actually have a phone that they're using at the house, but they're even learning how often they need to be on that phone, what can they do on that phone, what can they not do. So that's, again, some good practical for them in that. So they go through this process, and then they go through, they pass through gate one. So they pass through this first gate into this second area where they get a phone. And I put on here smartphone. I'm still debating on whether I want to get I still have in my office my Nokia brick phone that's that tall. That's that literally you have to press A. Like if you want the letter C, you have to go 111. And then, and so like to spell cat, it's 111, 1. and then I don't know 8 or whatever number it is. So but again, like whether it's a smartphone or a phone, they get a phone. It's full boundaries. It is. I mean, it is like you talked about, locked down completely. And the reason for that again goes back to this whole idea that they can't just have access to everything, right? It's like getting in the car. It's like you're in the car with them, and you're going, okay, all right, turn the ignition. Great job. Put it in drive with your foot on the brake. Great. Now put it in park. Awesome. All right, get out of the car, right? It's that same thing that they want to, and you need to let them know that ahead of time. I know they've heard about like cell phone contracts. I think you know your child, and you kind of know if you want to do that, but you can just literally Google cell phone contracts, and there's a bazillion of them out there that you can use, which basically has different stipulations for, hey, as a child, they realize they have their phone, they realize you're the one that pays for it. You're the one that has access to it at any time. You're the one that does this, and they can't do this, and this, and they agree to that, knowing this is why, and then there are the consequences for that. If you know your kids well enough to know that just simply telling them, hey, we're doing this, and here's why we're doing this, and they're like, thumbs up, we got you, mom, dad, great. But they have all of these boundaries. So a couple things I want to mention with this, and then I'll pass this on. This is kind of like that middle school through early high school. Now, I'm going to talk about when they get social media, and I'm going to talk about it being at 16. I didn't just pull that out of thin air. Again, I still want you guys to watch Caleb's message whenever we have all this online for you guys to see, because he explains why, using kind of like from mentally, why 16 is really that age where they can be on social media and start utilizing it, and why. So that's why I'm kind of taking some information from him. But a couple things on this: internet filtering or monitoring, time limits, restricting app purchases, monitoring all the text and contacts, so that they know, like what friends or whatever has their number, what numbers they have. You're able to see their texts, and look, all the monitoring apps, a lot of them out there have access to all of that. In your brochures, I want to call them brochures, but in your bulletins, on that second page, it'll say a QR code, scan for more resources. If you take your smartphone and you scan that, it'll pull up in Canva, but it'll show you a sheet that has basically titles and links. And on there's internet and monitoring sites, and there's some that Steve mentioned, but there's Canopy, Covenant Eyes, Q Studio, and Bark. And all four are fantastic. And I mean, literally, you can put them on the phones and the apps, and you can see all the text messages that are coming in or going out. And also, that's cool, they have actually like AI technology in it. So like, let's say someone is like bullying your child, but they don't realize they're being bullied, but they're being made fun of. It'll send you an alert saying like, you need to check your child's phone. It looks like they might be being bullied. I mean, it's crazy stuff like that's awesome. Again, AI can be used for good. But again, like just understanding that. But really, if you restrict their app downloads, that's going to be a huge thing. And then also having being able to set time limits and all that information. We're not going to sit here and how to do that. Again, in that resources, there's parental controls 1, parental controls 2, that just literally shows you on every single device, from a Fire Stick, Chrome Fire, to a Chromebook, to an Apple Watch, whatever. It gives detailed instructions on how to set parental controls, time limits, and all of that. But again, what did that look like for you guys?
So at this stage, like you said, we've got phone, and really for us it was, we want to add data when they're at a sporting event or they're at some kind of event where we need to come pick them up. They need to be able to communicate with us. That's kind of the deciding factor when we started allowing data on our phones. Same thing. It's locked down pretty tight. How many Apple people do we have here? Most Apple phones? Okay, awesome. So the beauty of iOS nowadays is they have a program built in called Screen Time, and it does everything we're talking about for you, to the extent this last download was inappropriate pictures, like taking pictures, or receiving pictures. If they're nude, they blur them out. Just some great tools. Apple's really come a long way on their background of their app, but it's a great tool to monitor time. It turns on this time in the morning, turns off this time at night. You're allotted this many hours of whatever. You can, keep phone on all the time, where the actual calling never doesn't use time, doesn't expire. understand this is going to be a frustrating time because you have their device locked down, so they're coming at you and saying, I can't get on the hack website, your stupid thing has it blocked, or this or that, or there's different things, and it was frustrating at first, but you got to push through that to understand that you're protecting them. What else? Our routers in the house have applications on that are blocking undesirable information. So just kind of gearing them towards the next stage.
Yeah. And we're talking about phones. I know in your minds maybe thinking, well, what about gaming? What about YouTube and all these? And again, if this conference was a 3 or 4 day conference, we would hit that, right? But in the resources, I've got an article on there on gaming and helping to understand how do you handle someone who maybe, or a child who is addicted to gaming. And again, talk about the routers. Like there's a lot of different applications where you can control how often a kid can watch YouTube. And if they have a smart TV in their house, through the router, through different apps, and also there's different routers that you can buy or things that can attach to the routers that basically can control that for you as well. So there's a lot of things out there. Again, it's what I found when I sat and just did the research, it's almost too much. There's not an excuse anymore of like, well, I don't know. No, you're not looking for it, because all you have to do is type in, how do I do this? And you will find a mazillion resources on that particular topic. So I think creating the research page was probably my hardest part of this entire event. Let me just be honest with you, because there's so much information, and how do I consolidate it? So what he's talking about, I think, is huge. And I'll just throw this as a quick caveat. We'll talk about this here in the next, passing through the second gate here into social media with full transparency. The Bark phone. This is kind of a new thing. So the Bark was really just an app that was, like you download it on your phone, you download it on your child's phone, and you have monitoring. But with an iOS, and again, we love iOS, but one of the downfalls of iOS is when it comes to your social media with full transparency. Because here's the thing, there is no application for an iPhone where you can actually see what is being sent or received through an app. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, anything that is sent through the app. If you have iOS, there isn't an application that can monitor that. Now, if you have an Android, it's PC, so it has basically a lot of loopholes that some apps companies have been able to basically find a way to monitor that. So you kind of have some options there, but for iOS, it's really hard. But if you have the Bark phone, enter the Bark phone. But really, its whole thing is basically they took a phone, which is a Samsung phone, and instead of it being iOS or Android, it's basically their software. It's integrated inside of it. So, like, one of the cool things about it is a kid can't delete a text message. Like, they can't delete anything. You can monitor everything that's on social media. You can take iOS of what you can do in screen time, add that into, like, basically as just the main feature of what it does, but then you have access and can see everything. Now, I know what we're probably thinking. And if you heard Steve up there, you probably got to hear this again, but it's like, man, my child's not going to be a big fan of me being able to see everything. And this is where it's kind of the hard rub as a parent, but here's kind of some information you can tell them. Nothing that they post, send, receive, anything, none of it is secret. None of it. Everything is being monitored. Everything. I mean, all a hacker has to do is find a way to get into Snapchat's database, and all of the pictures that were deleted are taken and sold to the highest bidder and sent across the internet. That's all it takes. Someone's smart enough, which there are people smart enough to hack in and take it. All of it is taken. If the government wanted to, if there was something, and Steve can tell you this straight up, like as someone who worked on a lot of cases, if he wanted to have someone go through someone's phone to find a deleted picture, they'll find it. And so your child has to know everything's being monitored. So it's not that I'm trying to, it's just that I want you to know and understand that. And this is a training tool. This is me helping you to know, hey, if it's being monitored and you know that, you're less likely to say or do something that you think you're going to think twice about it. And it gives you that opportunity where who do you want knocking on their door? The DEA or mom and dad? I mean, let's be honest. Like, you want to be the first one that comes and go, hey, buddy, this isn't, I saw this, and I know you probably are upset about that, but better me than somebody else. Let's talk about this. But I can talk about it all day. This guy here has actually gone through it. So what did that look like for you guys? And what I want to really get to, and I think what I want to hear is, again, your kids, they had full chance. You had access to everything. There was nothing secret from you guys, from you and Cameron. And yet, I can tell you, I've been with them and their kids. They're tight. I mean, tight-knit family. And they had full monitoring. There was no secrecy of their phones. How is that even possible?
I'm going to circle back around. It's that relationship that you've been cultivating this entire time. You've been having those conversations this entire time of, why are we doing this? Why is this important, Dad? Why, Mom, why do we have to have this on our phone? Those conversations with my sons, why pornography is bad, what it does to you, what it does to your marriage in the future. My wife sitting down with our daughters talking about their image and what's being portrayed on social media and why, do you understand why that's making you feel bad? And we've had all these conversations along this way. So there's this trust bond that we already have before we enter into this. And for our house with social media, not a big deal for the boys. We were more focused on, this is, unfortunately, pornography and those type of things, internet lust and those things but for our daughters, it was critical, and my wife took on that. And really her biggest part of that was she was friends with them on whatever application they were on. We didn't allow Snapchat for obvious reasons, and we had to have that battle and that conversation because everyone's using it. Everyone's having this. Why can't I have this, Mom and Dad? And, it's like the very essence of this program is to put something out and it disappear, as there's no accountability there. So we had to have those hard conversations, and I mean, they weren't without tears and everything else, but I think now it's funny, you don't know anything until your kids go away into college and they come back and they're like, oh, you guys were actually fairly intelligent, Mom and Dad, thanks. We're just now getting to that stage, so be patient. But just understanding that part of that initial conversation was full transparency, so that means at night. Devices at the younger age, the devices are plugged in our bedroom at night. We have a charging station. We know your password. That means we can look at your phone at any time and examine things and look at text and go, sounds like there's a little bullying going on here. Or what's going on this text chain right here. This is not godly. This could lead to something bad. So having those conversations, and again, it's, there's those nights when we decide to look at the devices and it's tears and thrashing and what is this? What are these 4 deleted texts over here? What's going on? Who is this friend? Are they a good friend? There's all these things going on besides just the technology piece of it. And it's not easy, but well worth it.
Yeah. And again, it's a lot. I mean, it just is. But again, as a parent, I would rather know what's going on in my child's world and being able to step into it and love on them and let them see, hey, I love you no matter what bad things you do. I love you no matter what good things you do. And guess what? So does God. And he loves you more than I do. Right? And so being able to just hit that over and over and over with them by having this relationship, this is, again, not without tears. Your kids will push back. And that's part of it, right? They're wanting to have independence and freedom. And so just help them understand this. But what I hope you're seeing as we get to this last one here, as we go through this third gate, is, again, come back to no restrictions. And again, this is kind of a tricky one, too, because there's really isn't like a time limit on this. It's not like, well, they're out of the house, so they have full freedom. You're going to hear from Justin here in a second. That's not even the full case in their home. But again, you see what's happened here. There's this slow progression, right, where they get a little bit more freedom. They get a little bit more of this and a little bit more of this, but there's still oversight. There's still you overseeing it. But if you know your kid well enough, you give them a little bit more freedom and a little bit more freedom to the point where, the goal is no restrictions. That's the goal. The goal is for them to they're going to go buy their own phone, have their own plan, and as an adult, they can do whatever they want. and hopefully they have built healthy habits. Hopefully they're close enough with you and have built such a strong relationship with you that they can always come back to you for help or for understanding, and you can always speak into it. But as a parent, you've done all that you could in that process, and that's really what this is about, is just bringing them to that point. But I'd love to hear it. Share with them kind of what you shared with me about kind of where your kids are now, and what does like no restrictions look like even right now.
Okay, so this phase for us, we start this their senior year of high school, and that way there's still kind of some more teaching moments. Honestly, at this stage, I mean, you know they're going to be out the door in a year, and there's not a lot you can do. You just hope everything you've trained them on and all the prayer that's been bathed upon them sticks. So for us, it was their senior year. We start pulling back time limits. You know, we still have hours set, like it turns on early in the morning and then sometime in the nighttime, because just honestly, nothing good happens after midnight. It just doesn't. So we still keep those timers on, but they have unrestricted, so they can, you know, if they spend 5 hours on YouTube and they're senior in high school, they spend 5 hours on YouTube. And we have that conversation. Hey, notice your grades are slipping. Maybe something you want to look at here. You spent, you know, 2 hours on TikTok or whatever it is, and helping them understand you know, oh wow, I didn't even notice I did that, Dad. I had no idea I was on that long. To the extent where oh gosh, I might get in trouble here. My wife explicitly said don't use names, but so Hudson came to me his senior year during this period and said, Dad, I need you to put a limit on TikTok. Just do 10 minutes. I've realized I've used, you know, 4 hours, whatever, this other day. So,
which is actually really easy to do. I've never been on TikTok, but everyone I talk to about TikTok, like it is easy to spend 4 hours on TikTok.
So that was a proud dad moment. You're like, oh wow, this is really working.
Self-regulating.
Yeah, it was just awesome to hear that. You're just like, oh, thank you, Lord. So yeah, mainly time restrictions. So even on my son's phone now, who is in his second semester at U of A, I still have content filtering on his device, and that's just adult websites, things like that. And that was just really me and him sitting down and having a hard conversation like this. This is not going away. I said, even for me, in my house, our router is locked down where no adult material can come in, and my wife has full access to everything. I said, son, that's just being safe, because, you know, the enemy is out there. And I kid you not, there's been times I've been on the internet trying to look for something for, you know, Bible study or whatever, and something bad has popped up. I said,
looks for you, man.
The enemy is going to attack. So he still has content restrictions on his devices, but, you know, again, they're unlimited time-wise and all that once they're on their own.
So again, this is a framework. All right. Now, you take or leave however you want to place into this. Use the resources and this to kind of like fill in the blank of how you want to do it. But understand that it's this progression. And so I would say the kind of the application behind this is the first thing is you want to develop a plan that fits your family dynamic. All right. Don't just do what Justin did because it's his family. Like, do what's best for your family. Talk with your spouse. Bring your kids in on it. I have found with my kids that if I sit down with them and I go, man, guys, like, what do we do today? Like, we just sit around and watch TV all day, and I don't know if that's even good for us. And they'll sit there and I'll say names. Luke's like, man, Dad, we just don't need to watch TV at all this week. And I'm going like, that's a bold move, Cotton. I'm sure you want to say it up for that? So that's just one of those things, too, where you want to build, you know, but what works for you? Talk with them. Have a cell phone contract. Have a technology, you know, plan for your whole family, whatever it is. But do what works for you guys. But make a plan. That's one of the big things. And the second thing is, there it is.
So I'm going to tag that just a little bit. Really, the bottom line, besides that relationship that you've been cultivating this entire time, is the consistency in whatever you're regulating. So if you lock it down and you're, you know, super mom and dad and it's rocking, but it's not sustainable, maybe you need to back off a little bit. Like, do what is sustainable for you. Or if you have somebody come in and they lock everything down for you and it's all amazing, but you have no idea how to control it or change it, that's not going to work. So figure out what works for you. It can be as simple as, you know, we're bringing the devices in here every night, and we're going to have free reign on it to look at it. We're going to have, you got to, like, you know, Tyler said, you got to figure out what's going to work for your family, for your environment, what your skill set is. I mean, I'm an IT guy, so my wife can come in and say, we're locking everything down, figure out how we do that, you know. But it really, it's it takes a lot of energy. There were many times when we were like, oh, if a kid comes in here one more time and says they're out of time on this or that. We used QStudio on all our laptops in the house, and they weren't allowed into the rooms until they were in high school because they're doing schoolwork and different things like that. And I can't tell you how many times, well, I'm out of time. And it's like, you spent 4 hours. What is that? Well, I played this video game, but now I got to do my homework. So it's going to be exhausting. But, oh, my gosh, it's so worth it in the end to know that you've prepared them for the next stage. They have the tools. They have the understanding. Granted, you were pushing a lot of it, but, like I said, with Hudson coming to me about that time limit thing, just to know that for the future, you are setting them up for success. Not perfect. I mean, even now, we still can see all their devices, and I look at my college kids and see what they're spending their time on, and I'm like, oh gosh, that's 4 hours on whatever social media app or whatever. But it is what it is.
That's good. And with that, guys, and not to be like we're at a church we over spiritualize it, but in all reality, lots and lots of prayer.
Oh yes.
Pray. I mean, every decision you make with it, pray over it. Every time your child messes up, pray over it. Every time you make a decision on pray, just continue to pray. And I always believe that if we continue to bathe our kids in prayer and continue to be faithful to what God's leading us to do as a parents, man, that's all we can do.
And part of that, with that praying, I'm thinking of me and Cameron, just the many nights that we've been praying over this in bed or whatever at night. You have to be on the same page. So make sure you and your spouse are tracking. You're on the same level. It's not the mom who's the enforcer and then dad's like, oh, whatever. You got to be on the same page. And I think praying through that really helps.
Yeah. So anyways, we're at 7:00. We want to get you guys out of here. I know you guys may have some questions, so I do want to be faithful to our time because we got to get that panel going up there. But I will say Justin's going to be on that panel, so if you've got a question that pertains to what we talked about that you would like to ask, definitely ask it during that time. We'll have almost an hour there, but I'm going to be around. So is Justin. If you guys have any questions about different things, maybe what he used. Again, I'm not there yet. Like, we haven't given our kids a phone yet. We're still working on time limits and different things on how much YouTube they watch during the week and things like that. But again, practical application, definitely Justin's your guy. But again, remember the heart behind this, right? You build healthy relationships with your kids and building healthy habits. That's what it's all about. All right, that's what it's about. And to the point where you build up and then give them a little bit more freedom. But I love even in college, you still have that kind of that oversight too and that monitoring. I think that's good. So thank you guys for coming. Let me pray for you guys and then we'll be dismissed. God, I thank you for just this opportunity we get to share our hearts. And I pray, Lord, that everyone here would be able to leave out of here knowing, Lord, that they need to have a plan. And God, they need to pray over that plan, and may that plan be solely focused around building a healthy relationship with their child and helping their child to build healthy habits, God, so that we may utilize technology in all of its facets and all of its forms, God, for our good, for your glory, Lord. And may we pass it on to our children. And God, may our children understand that these things that we are placing in their lives is for their good. And may they see that, Lord, and may just the connection between parent and child grow and bond because of this, God. We love you, Jesus. Thank you for your grace and for the gospel. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.